Welcome to Treble the Trouble with your hosts, crochet designers Faye, Helen, and Amanda.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Treble the Trouble. And this month it is the history of crochet, and we have a co-host with us this month. So I'd like to introduce you to Sarita. Sarita, hello and welcome.
Hello.
So you might recognize Sarita's voice. She's actually the voice of our intro and our outro, and I'm really pleased to have you here with us for this wonderful edition about the history of crochet and the origins of crochet. So before we get started, I do know that the word crochet actually comes from the French word for small hook, and it's also got its origins in the Germanic language as well. But have we got any origin stories about where crochet came from? So, Si, what's the history story do you know about crochet?
Well, according to Debbie Stoller's book, The Happy Hooker, which you can find at all good bookstores, I'm sure, there was a story in there that because crocheted lace was being made in factories at this point, I can't remember, I think it was about the 1900s and somethings, and the crochet workers in the factory that were making this crocheted lace were not paid very well. And the story goes that the foreman of the factory, or whatever you used to call that, ye olde foreman, would expect his workers to turn tricks on the side to make up for their low earnings. And theoretically, possibly an origin of the word hooker is because they used hooks to crochet, and then they go out and hook the men.
That's really interesting, and that's a completely different story to the one that I grew up knowing, which,
well, it's hardly an origin story of crochet. It's more of an origin story of the word hooker. But
yeah. But I was led to believe by stories told by my great-grandmother and my gran that crochet was never a woman's craft, and that it actually originated with fishermen, and that they used similar methods of crochet to make their nets, and that when they go off to do their fishing, they would leave their nets and the hooks that they used to make the nets behind, and apparently the women were not allowed anywhere near the equipment. So when the men went off to fish, they would then experiment with threads and their hooks, and that's how I heard the story of crochet coming to be what it is today. Any other stories?
So Amanda, did you have anything?
I don't have any. The two stories that I know have just been done. And I don't really know much about history at all of anything, to be honest. I'm going to chime in at the end when we get to the future, though.
Well, all the stuff that I've read and researched on it says that you can't find the exact history and date of it all because of its fragile nature. Crochet is a textile craft, and they didn't use acrylics and things. It was cotton and wool, which over time would rot and disappear. So although there are rumors saying that it was from the time of Christ, there's absolutely no proof of it until the mid 1800s, when things started to be getting written down and you had pictures and things. There's no definitive proof.
No, that's interesting. Although we do know that archaeologists over time have found very old examples of knitting and knall binding and other forms of textile work. How have they survived better than crochet examples?
I think it depends on where they were kept. You know, I mean, Egyptian mummies, for example, you know, if you went looking in any ordinary graves, they'd be gone.
That's true.
Egyptian mummies are preserved. So I think it has a lot to do with where they were found. In the 1840s is when you started to get written instructions. So in the 1840s is when stuff started getting written down, so you have a more concrete record of it. The little book that you can see at the front is the original, and that is number 6 in the series. The 3 behind it are copies. Obviously, I don't let people handle the small one, but the copies people can look at and read, and they do make for some interesting reading. We don't know the exact date of these books, but we do know that the publisher was sometime between 1840 and 1870, and that's as close as I've been able to find out the dates for these books.
I did read that a Dutch publication called Penelope first mentions crochet and has an illustration of a shepherd's hook, which is what our crochet hooks have evolved from, back in a volume in 1833. So
Right.
yeah, so like you say, with the invention of printing presses, that's where crochet is starting to become a little bit more recognized, I guess.
But it's just because it's the fragile nature of textiles does not lend itself to being able to find sort of proof of a lot of these things.
Yeah, and printed proof wouldn't have been, like you said, with the invention of the printing press, but also literacy wasn't as widespread before that time either. So any kind of spreading of the traditions of any handcrafts would have been verbal.
This is it. I mean, lots of stuff was just passed down. You know, it was taught from generation to generation, and you didn't need to know how to read.
Well, that's it. I mean, when I was taught to crochet, I was talked through it and shown by hand, and at the age of 8 from my grandmother and my great grandmother, and actually their knit and natter group as well during the school holidays. It was all verbally passed on to me.
Yeah.
With no, the written stuff came later.
This is it. I mean, my dad taught me when I was about 7 or 8. So it's just, that is the way most of this stuff gets passed down.
And it seems to be more and more the way that it's going to be passed down as well, which I'm sure we'll cover later.
I mean, the Victorians were great with passing on information on, and like Helen said, the Royal Crochet Worker around about the 1840s was first published, but there was another publishing company around the same time that started making newspaper pamphlets, or the early stages of magazines, and that was a publishing company called Weldon's, which was the 1840s. I'll give you some examples of that.
The examples that I've got are later than that, but this is number 230, and this is from, sorry, that not the one that's on the screen, that one's yours,
Okay.
Isn't it? That's number 395, so that's the one, number 230, and that's from 1905. Yours, issue number 395, would have been later.
Depends on the series, because you've got the 77th series,
right,
of number 230. This one, oh, that's a later one, 180th series, so that would have been later still. But I know that in storage I've got earlier ones than those.
I actually had some French magazines somewhere with crochet in them, and those are just over 100 years old, but I haven't got those to hand. But the thing is, everybody seems to associate crochet with the Victorians, and to be honest, most of the surviving crochet samples do tend to be more Edwardian.
So I had heard that crochet is a poor man's lace. Do you know where that came from?
It wasn't just made, it's quicker, and it wasn't just made by rich people. Lace making is a very intense and slow process. It can take you hours to do about an inch, 2.5 centimeters in new money.
So like me with knitting.
Yes, like you with knitting.
Whereas crochet grows so much quicker. So therefore it was cheaper. So this is why it's known as poor man's lace. Can you get up the Heritage Crochet book? So this book is a really good book with a lot of history in it. She spent a lot of time researching. It was published in 1987, and there's a lot of history in it and a lot of pictures. One of the magazines that we've just seen has come out of this. There are adverts in it from various places. If you're interested in crochet, this is a really good book to get hold of. I don't know whether it's still in print, but we can put the ISBN number in the information, and if anybody's interested in getting it, then maybe you'll be able to find one secondhand somewhere.
I have thought about the Victorians being more, the crochet being more thought of as a Victorian thing, even though the evidence is older. Could it be because Queen Victoria crocheted?
It's quite possible. I mean, it wasn't just she crocheted, and because she did, a lot more people did.
Yeah.
And you see a lot more paintings and pictures of during Victorian times of people doing this. Now, the penhold is classed as more demure and
Ladylike.
Ladylike and better. It gave your fingers a better look.
So that you would hold it like this.
Yes. So that
like
that was
this.
classed
Yeah, this is how I hold it.
right.
I only hold mine like that when I have to do one of those long stitches that has lots of loops on it.
Oh, and you hold it to lift them
Like
up.
a double treble
I
or
did
something.
take
I
it out
hold it like
for you.
this, so I can
Honest.
hold the loops on.
There was something you found out about the knife hold that we didn't know.
Yeah. It also apparently the knife hold is better for preventing carpal tunnel.
And
So
looking at that crochet hook with the special patent,
yes.
this one.
Now, to me, that would be more for the pencil hold, but I don't know. You see, because you would hold it, you see, to me, it fits ever so nicely for the way I hold the hook.
I'm looking at the figure above that one, actually, with that ingenious moon shape
Then
for
Yeah.
the thumb rest. That would make an interesting thumb rest, and that would one like that would encourage you to hold it like a knife, wouldn't it?
No,
No.
that would be penhold.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's encouraging you to put your thumb on that thing.
Would support your finger as you.
Yeah, because
Here you go. But this just sort of fits. Where are we there? Look. It just my finger and
Oh, I
thumb trying to show
see.
it. You see, hang on, if I do that there, you can see how they just fit so naturally into that space.
Right. Yes.
So this all ties in with the pencil hold looking more ladylike and giving your hands better lines.
oh yeah, look at this line. Look at my line. I have chubby boy fingers.
However, I found out something else really interesting about crochet. I mean, everybody's been saying during lockdown, and people have been, I mean, crocheters have been saying this for years, but especially during lockdown, it's been well documented that doing crafts is good for your mental health, right?
Absolutely.
And we already knew this, but something I found earlier, and I will read this from the book because I thought it rather amusing, especially as we already knew it.
Okay, which book, and do you have an estimated year?
Okay, so the book is this one, the one that you were showing earlier,
The Heritage Crochet.
Heritage Crochet. The it says, too great an indulgence in crochet can be soporific, especially if the pattern is repetitive. Its therapeutic properties have always been well known, as shown in the following quotation dating from around 1916. Of recent times, medical authorities have declared that crochet work undertaken in moderation is one of the most beneficial of home hobbies, as it not only occupies the fingers, but the mind, and is soothing to the nerves. One eminent physician has gone so far as to recommend the pastime to men as well as to women, and to suggest that it might be regarded as a sedative and a substitute for a smoke.
That's brilliant.
So really, you could say crochet, keeping women from killing each other since 1916.
Oh, I need to write that down because that's going to make a really good t-shirt. Say it again.
No, actually, crochet, keeping women from killing their husbands since 1916.
So another reason for the Victorian time thing was because there were a lot more books and things around.
Sorry.
So you actually have, you can see behind me, my Flora Clickman sets. All of these books, I don't have the full series of all of them. These were all edited by a lady called Flora Clickman. She was an editor of a well-known magazine in the early 1900s. The Home Art Crochet book, which is the one that you can see to the right of the picture, is the first one that came out in 1912, and the others followed later on. The magazine also produced a quarterly supplement called Stitchery. So you can see books from number 1 to number 12. You can see I have quite a few of them missing. I'm working on that bit. But the books from number 1 to number 12 are annuals. So you have 4 quarterly issues in each book. So all of those books go from 1912 onwards. There are some other books there as well, including Flame Bearers of Welsh History, which has absolutely nothing to do with crochet, but the book's from 1905, which is why it's on that shelf.
That's fair enough. I'm actually impressed that during that era they had a female editor.
It was a women's magazine, and I think, I can't remember all the details. I've got a home art page on my website which tells you about Flora Clickman and tells you about this set of books. It also gives you links to where you can download some of them, because anything that's pre-1923 is out of copyright. So you can go to the Antique Pattern Library and you can download free of charge rather a lot of antique books that are all out of copyright, and it's all perfectly legal for you to do so. And there is some amazing work in them, not just crochet, all sorts of stuff. the link for that will be in the description below the video. Well worth a visit.
So I mean, I've got some antique publications as well, quite a large collection of the Weldon's practical crochet supplements, as well as a Flora Clickman book that you gave me for my birthday a few years ago, and they're all in storage. And one of the things that I really like about those publications is how they describe to you to create the pattern.
The thing is that because this was all passed down, and because they were taught at an early age to do it, certain things were known. You knew that you had to do something. You knew that a hole was in filet crochet, because there was a lot of filet crochet done, but you knew that the hole meant that you did a treble, 2 chain and a treble, whereas the one meant that you did 3 treble. You knew all this. It was because you were taught it, you were brought up with it. I mean, the other thing is that they used to do a row, cut it off at the end and go back to the beginning and do it.
Yeah, which is too many ends.
Yeah, because the back of the work was considered coarse and shouldn't be seen. Yeah, far too many ends. I'm not doing stuff like that. No. But I do remember, just for fun, replicating a tennis coat from a 1901 publication. Never actually finished it. It is still in storage, and I didn't frog it, and that was the language that they use. The shorthand that we know, the shorthand that we know today from crochet publications wasn't a thing. So you'd actually have full sentences describing. This is it. And what we call a double crochet, bearing in mind we are talking UK terms, what we call a double crochet, they called a plain crochet.
Yes.
Or a plain stitch. So and you did plain and whatever. Yeah.
And they also used single crochet.
But that was the slip stitch.
Yes, it was.
If you talk to, when I was involved with the Antique Pattern Library, a lot of people used to say about the old terms, because books went over from the UK to America, and at some point the terms got changed. I don't know when that happened, but Americans refer to these books now as the old terms. However, in the UK, we still use them. So it's a lot easier for us to read these old books than the Americans. So as I know.
What? So you learn English terms, though, didn't you? Yeah.
Oh,
right.
Yeah,
okay.
Because I was taught to crochet by my mom when I was little, just so that I could play with the yarn and do things. You know, she didn't say this is a single crochet, this is a double crochet. She just said, look, you can start out with this chain, and then you do this. And I didn't have names for stitches because I was just making things. You know, I didn't learn how to follow a pattern or anything like that when I was that young. It was only when crochet sort of saw a resurgence that I came back to it. And I learned from that little beginners section. I refreshed my memory from the back of the crochet magazine.
Right.
That has the things. Yeah.
I didn't even know there were different names. I just thought I was forgetting the names of the stitches. So I'm very, unless somebody comes up to me and says it's difficult to do, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to dive right in. So I'm following patterns, not knowing that some of them are US terms, some of them are UK terms. And just thinking, you know, I can never remember the names of the stitches. I'm going off the picture, so I knew which stitch I was doing. And I think it was about 2 years in before I realised the names were different.
So the other thing that's an important part of the history of crochet is the Irish crochet.
Why is that so important?
Because it wasn't actually, it was taught by nuns to the Irish people or the Irish women during the potato famine. And it developed as a whole different technique on its own. It's an exquisite form of lace making that is, it's not difficult to learn, but it is quite difficult to perfect. You have to get things just right. I've got an amazing book.
So I do know that Irish crochet is a collection of lace-like motifs that are then joined together using chains and either slip stitch or double crochet to join the motifs together to create the most exquisite looking garments. Most notably, you find them on Pinterest mainly, is crochet wedding dresses done in the form of Irish crochet. So just go on Pinterest and put in the description Irish crochet dresses, and you'll see the most incredible garments. Absolutely beautiful. But I believe that Helen had said before that when the nuns were taught this form of crochet, but each nun would be taught a different motif, and they would only know that one motif, and then they'd make lots of the same motif, and then somebody else would then bring those motifs together and make them. So it was the whole convent would make the items, and I think that's how they taught it, how the nuns then transferred that information on to the Irish women.
I don't know if I'm right, but you know, the Heritage Crochet book that we just looked at, was the cover project actually Irish crochet?
Yes.
Spotted it.
This book has some amazing stuff in it. It has a picture of a wedding dress in it that Faye's just been talking about. And it tells you the history and how it all started. But it has the most amazing pictures in there.
I want to know how to make that flower right now. Lovely.
Some of these Irish crochet motifs.
Wow. No, that's thin too.
Yeah.
Is that like number 20 thread?
Easily, or it could even be 40 or bigger than smaller than that. But you can see the chain detailing between the motifs. So that is how they would join everything together. So you've got chains and picots filling in the space.
Actually, the picots may not actually be picots.
Oh.
They are quite possibly, because if you notice, the book is called Clones Lace.
Yeah.
There is such a thing as a clones knot.
Uh-huh.
And it's quite possible you will need to
they do look quite large for picots, but I couldn't
Yes.
think of them being anything other than.
So the way this stuff was made, as Faye said, you made your individual motifs, you basted them onto a background in the shape of whatever you were making, and then you joined them together with delicate lace work. And yeah, it's fascinating. It's something I have had to go at some of the motifs, but I've never actually had to go at doing the whole thing. This is on my bucket list.
It's on mine as well. A couple of years ago, the image is actually on my Instagram. I did start making some of the Irish crochet motifs, and I had them pinned out on a vest top. So I was going to make a vest top of them, and I had them all pinned out on the vest top ready to be able to go ahead and do the joining. And then I moved, so there's no process in guessing where it is.
You used to be able to get it directly from Maya, and if you buy it directly from her, you will also get it signed.
Oh,
But the book it is a fascinating book to read. There are also patterns in it and techniques, and it shows you how to actually make Irish lace, as well as just reading about what it is. So this is well worth getting.
Genesis of yarn. In the beginning, the heavens were void, and the earth was formless. Then God made a new creation, and called his creation man. And it was good. But man was lonely, and man was cold. So God caused a great sleep to come upon man. When he awoke, man beheld woman, and woman was already up and walking around with a grave countenance. And she spoketh to man, Why are you still in bed when I've been busy cooking and cleaning and begetting children? And there was much weeping and gnashing of teeth. Man told God of woman's displeasure. Lo, God saith, That gal needs a hobby. So God spoketh and created a sheep, and cotton, and a wide range of natural and synthetic fibers. He gathered the fibers in skeins, and bringeth them together unto one place. God called the place Michael's, and he saw that it was very good. God placed the man and the woman he had made into this paradise, and the woman was delighted in all her senses. She bowed to worship while man searcheth out an automotive department. Man saw that no automotive department was to be found for him, and there was great weeping and gnashing of teeth. It came to pass that woman beheld the mysteries of crochet. She created many good things for man to clothe his body. Man was warm, but now he was also hungry, and desired for his stomach to be filled. He asked of his wife the hour of the evening meal, whereupon woman saith to him, Can't you see I'm working on a layette for our new baby? Just one more row and I'll be right with you. Her thoughts remained with her. She had in mind to say, He thinketh he is the only man on earth, but she spoke it not. Upon the dawning of the following spring, man beheld his wife crocheting a cord pull. Man inquired, Woman, what reason have you to crochet a cord pull? Light bulbs and electricity will not be invented for another 9,700 years. Woman was not angered. She, with a comely smile, spaketh thus, Husband, I have created these things for my stash, lest I be unprepared for events untold. It came to pass that man had seen the light. He must have committed sins of great wickedness, for God meted out his punishment. Man must live out his life among the tangled web of a woman who crochets. And man weepeth and crieth out to God, Couldn't you just kick me out of Eden or something?
So that was the genesis of yarn. What did you think? So I actually think the genesis of yarn is probably the most believable story that we've had so far during this episode. What do you think?
yeah. It couldn't be any more believable if Lawrence Fishburne had said it.
Now, just for clarity, we don't know who wrote the genesis of yarn. So we are using it as an anonymous. All we do know was that Helen found it on the internet many
No, not that many.
a long time ago, Helen came across it, and even then you didn't have the author's name on there, did you?
I did at the time, but because I'd printed it off, I didn't actually write the author's name on it, which was really bad. Now I know better. But when I went back to find out who had written it to reference them, I can't find it anywhere on the internet anymore. And if anybody does know where it came from and can sort of give me the reference of the original author, I'd be delighted.
Crochet itself hasn't changed. As the basic techniques have remained the same for hundreds of years, but what we do with them has changed. We use techniques they wouldn't have dreamed of in the Victorian era, and what we do with each stitch, so popcorn stitch, bobble stitch, all that has progressed and evolved, but the materials have changed. Like self-striping yarn, acrylic, blends, silk, cotton, hundreds of different fibres at your disposal, and colours that they would never have used. So everything has stayed the same but changed. And we have a slideshow of a few different techniques.
So this is a tub chair. I did it for a magazine called Reloved, and the idea was that I upcycled the tub chair. The tub chair was secondhand, cost me a tenner from somewhere, and I just used lots of different stitches to get lots of colour.
It's incredible, I must say. And I can see some traditional stitches in there as well.
I used lots of different ones.
Yeah.
You know, it was the idea was, you know, you get the fabric ones that are sort of patchwork, but they're not really.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I wanted to get. I wanted to look like a patchwork chair, but a crocheted version.
Mandalas are a modern day doily. So when you mention crochet to people, they immediately think of those single colour doilies that would have been on their coffee tables, telephone tables, on top of the television for the vase of flowers and things like that. But I would say that doily patterns have evolved into these bright colourful mandalas, and the pattern on your bottom left corner is actually a doily pattern that I used a variegated yarn to make. And I adorn my home with mandalas everywhere, which is just a glorified doily.
Oh, inchoate. Amigurumi have, in the last, I'd say, 10 years, really burst. That everywhere you can find patterns for every conceivable TV character and everything, just anything you could ever want. And I think the main thing with the insurgence of amigurumi is how we access patterns. You can just go on the internet and find a pattern, either paid or free, whatever your budget allows, and it's there. Somebody has done it.
The internet has made everything really accessible.
Oh, and Claude.
It is.
There's actually two things in this picture I could talk about. First of all, Claude, he's a lovely amigurumi, actually, and he's pushing the boundaries of what amigurumi is. So big. When you think of an amigurumi, you kind of think of something quite small. But there he is, and in order to work his 8 tentacles in the round, you had to go up and down each tentacle. So one of the rounds, one of the larger rounds on him was over 1,000 stitches, but he was worth it. He's got his tentacles in many pots. Those are chakra bowls, and they were designed by a certain Faye.
They were indeed. That was one of my very early patterns, and it is a free pattern available on Ravelry. And Claude really liked those chakra bowls, didn't he?
He did.
I also spy in this same picture. I'm going to zoom it in. Can you see? Look, we've got crocheted Easter eggs underneath Claude's tentacles.
That pattern was in, I believe it was in Simply Crochet magazine. There was a cover kit, and the cover kit was to make covers for the little plastic eggs. But those are actually real eggs. They're actually blown out eggshells. And so that was a little bit difficult to get them around it, but I crocheted the majority of it first and then slipped it over.
I wonder if crocheters from the turn of the 1900s and earlier than that would have done something similar with decorating eggs up for Easter and stuff. Makes you wonder, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That is stunning.
This is actually crow tat. We will be doing an episode on this at some point. This is a form of tatting that is done with a crochet hook, and it's not as difficult as it looks, but I say that about a lot of things, so I'm told. Yeah, I'm gonna really shatter the whole sort of vision now, because that young lady is actually wearing brown jeans with a bit of silk tied around her boobs to make it look like a wedding dress.
Oh, I genuinely thought it was a wedding photo.
No, it's not. We were in my neighbour's garden because I didn't have any nice flowers in mine, and yeah, she's wearing brown jeans with the silk.
I like that picture more knowing that.
Yeah.
That was a yarn bombing. When the Hellions were babies, we went to the Sunshine Centre, a kids' activity place, really. It was some chore start. And they did sort of 1 week they'd have finger painting, another week they'd be sat playing with the insides of pumpkins. And it was just somewhere you could go where you weren't alone and you didn't feel isolated, and your kids could meet other kids, and we sang songs. It was really, really fun. And when one of the leaders there found out I crocheted, she says, "Oh, do us the sunshine, do us the sunshine." It took me about a year till I did it. So for the summer solstice, I found that it's actually a cushion cover pattern, and it's tapestry crochet. It was my first thing I did in tapestry crochet, and I wrote a story about the lady who asked me to do the sunshine, tied it to the gate, tied the story to the gate, and ran, pushing Geek Girl in the pram, bouncing down the road. So the parasols are slightly a step aside from filet crochet. So it's all worked in blocks of 3 round. This one is a spiral, and it's worked with 2 active threads at a time. You can put your finger in the middle and draw a spiral all the way around to the edge.
It's like it's never ending.
It felt like that at the time.
This won't keep the rain out.
Not really. Doesn't even keep the sun out very much, but you look elegant whilst holding it. That was the first one I made, and the thought in my head was the penguin's umbrella in Batman when he spins it. People. So that's actually called hypnosis.
I like the idea of it. I mean, years and years ago, you'd have your demure ladies out for an afternoon stroll with Lacy umbrellas, and this is your modern take on that.
Yeah.
I love it.
I am planning one myself now because of you. It's all your fault.
It's always my fault.
So this is another mandala. This is actually a pattern by the guy with the hook, and this was his crochet along in the autumn of 2020 for Day of the Dead, and a lot of people have done theirs as tablecloths, so table coverings. I haven't decorated up my skulls on mine yet because I like it as it is, and I adapted mine to go in a metal hoop so that I could hang it. So this is just a really elaborate doily.
It doesn't really look it from the picture, but this is a pale grey, and I actually did this for Inside Crochet. And the idea of them was that the loop on the top goes over your middle finger so that your ring finger is free to put the ring on it.
And they do look like they could be vintage lace examples.
Yeah, they're very similar to tatting, but they're not quite as delicate. You can't get crow-tat quite as delicate because you're using a hook, and it's just a little bit different.
What have we got next? Crochet Alongs.
Yes, this one's my picture, but it is not my design, and it doesn't have a border on it yet. So don't zoom in too close.
It's a work in progress. It's a whip.
It's a whip. Yeah, it's a work in progress at the time it was photographed. This is Helen's crochet along that's entitled Kiss Me Quick, and it's based on vintage seaside postcards. And it was wonderful. It's the second of her crochet alongs that I've done. But I think I've included the picture just so I could talk about crochet alongs in general, because this is one of the things that our modern age has given us. This is Secret Garden. This was the first one. And the crochet along is, it's a way for people to connect all around the world. Everybody's making their own blanket, but we're all making it at the same time. Sometimes not. You can dip in and out if you want. But the idea is that parts of the pattern are released gradually and everybody works on it at the same time. And it's great because through doing these things and gathering together on a group like a Facebook group or any other way, it's just another way that the craft has brought a sense of community to it, and you don't feel so alone in the world. And I think things like Secret Garden, I'm sure friends have been made, lifelong friends, just because they were working on the same thing at the same time.
Yeah, I think that has been the case. And the other thing we've noticed with crochet alongs is a lot of the same people come back to do the next one and then the next one. Certainly with Helen's designs, we're seeing people coming back from the other patterns, haven't we? And conversing like they'd never been away.
Yeah, it's really nice that people keep coming back, because it's like meeting old friends, you know, and there's lots of stuff that I don't have to explain anymore because they know how I work. So but these were fun to design. They were hard work, but they were definitely fun to design.
Well, they sure are fun to make as well.
They are. Oh, so this one's actually mine. Helen introduced me to art crochet a few years ago. Now, I actually think some of Helen's designs are actually true works of art. For example, you'll see a couple of examples as we go through these photos. But this type of art crochet was slightly different in that you start with a photograph and you create your base layer using different threads, different forms of yarns, as you can see the top part there to mimic clouds in the sky. It not quite eyelash yarn, but they're definitely very fluffy. Eyelash yarn down in the bottom left corner. So it was like combining lots of different yarns that you would normally put together in the same project to replicate a photograph. And this is actually of the River Medway as you look towards the M2 bridge, just over from where I'm living now, actually. So
that
alongside Cuxton. It is, and I took this the photograph of this piece of art I actually took from directly opposite where my boat is now moored. And I took it about 3 years before we even knew that we were moving on to a boat. So art crochet was my introduction to art crochet, and I really need to do more because I thoroughly enjoyed it. Helen, this is a work of art. To me, this is art crochet.
This one has a bit of a story behind it. It's actually only just over half the size that it was originally going to be, because I made the frame for it and then reread the instructions, and they said that this particular piece shouldn't be more than this size, so I ended up cutting it down. This combines a lot of different techniques. The leaves, there's 270 leaves on it. The base is, I wanted it to look as real as possible, so the frame is what you would let an ordinary clematis climb on. The stems of the clematis are all made with a lucette. As I said, 270 leaves all attached to the individual ends, and then the petals are thread painted, which is a technique where you use 2 or more strands of thread and change one at a time to give you a shaded effect.
Like that there. I thought I'd zoom in so you can see the shading.
Well, and as you can see, I used loop stitch as well to create the fluffy clematis seed heads.
It's incredible, and now I know why you really hate ends.
This one uses different techniques. The backgrounds are tapestry crochet, where you work over, you use 2 or more colours. I've used 3 for each of the different sections, and you work over the colours that you're not using. The flowers were then made separately and sewn on, and involve a lot of florist's wire to keep the petals and the leaves in the right shape.
Oh, now this is very interesting, Amanda.
Filet crochet has changed. It's traditional filet crochet. It's the technique that Queen Victoria was using, but done by a ginormous geek. And
I can see an adipose.
There's a little adipose and canine and a Dalek and an Ood and a Cyberman. Some of them were patterns I found, and some of them I drafted myself. But it's
I love canine.
The adipose is my favourite though. The solid screwdriver, that one I drafted myself, and I love that one. But
that's brilliant.
The technique, the basic technique, hasn't changed for hundreds of years, but the pop culture references, it's not flowers and it's not lace and it's not pretty and it's not feminine. It's wave your geek flag high.
I love it.
It's great.
Oh, now this looks amazing.
Thank you very much. This one's one of mine. This was the first design I ever had published in Inside Crochet. It's the first design I've ever had published at all. And it's got a story behind it. Anyone with a sharp eye and a knowledge of textiles will know that this design is based on Welsh wool, which is woven on a machine. But I've never heard of Welsh wool before in my life. And then somebody in the studio we were working in, Zara, she walked past in this amazing coat that had this pattern on it, only much, much smaller. And I said, oh my gosh, can I take a picture of your coat? And I took a picture of the coat, and she said, it's a vintage Welsh wool coat. And I made this design based on the pattern in her coat. The reason that I wanted to include this in today's discussion is because I wanted to show you how different variegated yarn has become. If you go back to even 10 years ago, even maybe 90s, 80s, you get variegated yarn that has maybe a few centimeters or a few inches of one color, and then it jogs and it changes quite drastically to another color, and then quite drastically to yet another color, and it does that throughout. This one, although it looks like it is striped, if you were to make something else with it, it would just be a very gradual color change. This probably would class as self-striping yarn,
Yes.
but not for socks, you know, because that would be even less. But this is Signet Boho Spirit. Welsh wool offers a huge treasure trove of inspiration for me, and I really am inspired to continue making more tapestry crochet designs using Welsh wool pattern. These are cushions that I made for my mother-in-law. She requested them. I love making handmade stuff for people, but it's even better for me when they ask for it, because I know they'll appreciate it for sure. These are just a variety of different stitch patterns that there are available. You can get stitch patterns by the 100 in books, and it really does just add variety and interest to the whole craft in itself. And I absolutely love playing with texture.
Snakes and Ladders is a very old game, and there's a lot of history involved with that completely. As far as the traditional crochet bit goes, it does have a granny square board, and the granny square board you can use as a blanket, but it's just made a bit more fun by having some playing pieces and a dice on it as well.
Oh, I had to include this one because it's like one of the best things I've ever made. Using crochet threads, a smallish hook. It's actually a pattern by DMC called the Lacy Lucy dress. I made one for them that they used at the trade shows, and then I made this particular one to wear to my sister's wedding. But it was just to show that even in this day and age, you can crochet your own dresses and they look stunning and they are so comfortable to wear. It just goes to show that crochet really stands the test of time, and it's not always about orange and brown granny squares.
Well, I do believe I can take credit for suggesting a dip-dyed slip underneath.
Yes, that's true. Is this another amigurumi, Amanda?
It is. I really do a lot of amigurumi. It's the instant gratification. They're quick projects and you get something visually arresting when they're done. But Riot Bear, as he's known, is a take on a traditional teddy bear because he has posable joints, and the firmness of which I stuff him is like those original teddy bears. Really firm, movable, but crocheted and soft and safe for children. But the techniques involved in crocheting a bear wouldn't have been doable in the Victorian era because you go round and round and round, and they just wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
No, from side cut off. From side to cut off.
Oh, I'm exhausted thinking about that now.
Oh, me too. So Amanda's yarn bombing again.
Oh, the hats were such a disappointment. So these are the Skittles in Warrington, where I'm from. They're officially called the Warrington Guardians, but everybody calls them the Skittles. And I'd complained to the council about a craft fair they'd run, and ended up in a conversation with sort of an events organizer, and happened to slip in yarn bombing as it was just emerging, as it was quite new, and I was just thinking, I need to do something, and I was commissioned by the council to make hats and scarves for the Skittles. Because the Skittles have a flat top, the hats didn't look right, but the scarves were spectacular.
I think I've included the picture of that a little bit later on.
Because they have wire, it's quite thick wire on them to make them look like they're blowing in the breeze. And it's the biggest yarn bombing I've done, and they were put on ready for the town centre lights being switched on. And I actually think they'd all been stolen by drunkards before the lights were switched on.
Oh dear.
Another yarn bombing. This
It
was this is the park across the road from our house. That's a slug. There were also snails, and the park had a complete regeneration, new play area. We'd had a nice sort of, they're called the sensory garden, with lots of smelly plants and benches to sit in. And to celebrate it being opened, I did bunting for across the entrance. And in the dead of night, with the help of my brother and his friend, because I needed someone tall to put the bunting up, scattered slugs and snails around the sensory garden and the play area, with little notes on them saying, "I'm not lost, take me home." And there was a note I'd put in the, that's a snail, I think that one's a snail.
Yeah. And you can just see the slip of paper with him.
And there was a big notice and the park notice board saying what I'd done, why I'd done it, and who I was.
Oh wow.
Oh, there we go. So I did include the scarf.
Oh, there you go, there's the scarf. The scarf.
Yeah, that does look good.
It does. That's really cool. There's another hat.
Oliver Cromwell.
Oh,
He's a big thing in our town, sort of. It's a very odd relationship with him. But for International Yarn Bombing Day, a good few years back, a Facebook page that I follow that is an art page, not a crochet page, did a competition to win a print of one of her pieces where she tried to crochet a hat, and she'd drawn a cartoon of how the hat turned out, because it was salmon pink and it was terrible and it was just the worst hat in the world. So I made Oliver Cromwell a salmon pink bonnet that was very badly made, and with the help of my sister, climbed up onto his plinth, realised he was much taller than I anticipated, and I had two sticks, and I'm chopsticking this hat onto his head because I just couldn't reach it. I thought I'd be able to sort of climb up his leg a bit or something. I don't know what was going on. I got the hat on, left a note of why I'd done it and who I was. My sister then phoned the newspaper and said, "Have you seen what's going on the hat outside your offices?" It was on the website, and sometime after it went to print, they withdrew the article from the paper website because the Cromwell Appreciation Society complained that it would encourage a spate of graffiti on Cromwell. So there is no internet evidence that this ever happened other than my photographs of the newspaper the next Friday.
oh
So it was
wow.
in the print edition, but not online.
That's funny.
Sorry, I'm just amazed at an Oliver Cromwell Appreciation Society.
Yeah, wasn't he a known witch hunter?
He was a very not nice person, to be honest. He was very anti-royal, which I don't care how you believe in the royals, if you think that they're good or bad or whatever, but he instigated a lot of people dying. It was just really horrible, and he passed through Warrington once.
Tunisian crochet. We did this one as a Cal. This was I forgot the designer's name. Carolyn Christmas.
Yes, I think so.
I think that's her name. So Helen and I wanted to test out the idea of a crochet along before Helen launched her secret garden patterns. So we, with our students and a few other people, worked on this pattern together, and this blanket teaches you lots of different Tunisian crochet techniques, doesn't it? And just by simple use of 3 colours, you make something quite modern from traditional stitches.
It was 4 colours, and each of the 35 blocks was a different stitch pattern. It was a bit of an experience, wasn't it?
It was indeed, but I learned a lot about Tunisian crochet.
Doing something to my eyes.
And I believe that, I don't know, again, I don't know how true this is, but I believe that the form of Tunisian crochet comes from that area of the world, the Middle Eastern area.
I'm not
I
sure.
think, but I know that the French call it tricot.
They also
And the
call it
Americans
Afghan
call-
stitch.
Yeah, that's what the Americans call it.
Yeah, Afghan stitch.
Yeah.
So yeah, back to not really knowing the origins of the craft. So where do you see the future of crochet?
I genuinely see the future of crochet in conductive fibers. So there is there's two different types. There's conductive yarn and conductive thread. I believe that this is a hope, rather. This is a dream. Conductive fibers is the future of crochet. You can get conductive yarn and conductive thread, and they both work slightly differently. So conductive yarn, if it's loosely worked together, so would be better for knitting than crochet. But you could make a sweater and then attach LEDs to it, and it would light up, but it would still have the flexibility of yarn. Conductive thread is better for tighter woven fabrics, so that would be better for crochet. And with that, you could put like a smartwatch, attach a smartwatch to your clothing, and just with like just the screen of a smartwatch, and it would just work. It would power it. It would send the information from a microchip somewhere, like in your hem or something. And
I'm sorry, I'm just laughing at face here.
Yeah, what's really funny is the video won't pick up my face because it'll just be the shot of Amanda. I'm impressed.
I have to say that is really cool. You know, it's not something I've heard of. It's not something I would have certainly not imagined. Yeah, but that sounds very interesting.
I love the sound of it.
Are you sure you're not wearing something conductive right now?
beamed up by aliens.
No, it's just the kitchen disco.
Why is it? Why?
It's got to be the doctor.
Yeah,
Yeah, that just sounds incredible. Certainly for the future of designers.
there are a few items out there, sort of in the way of t-shirts with dot matrix built into them, so you can change the name. You change what your t-shirt says, with a little portable microchip, sort of Raspberry Pi kind of computer in them. But I think it's going to get to the point where we have that, and you connect it to your phone, and you can pay at the till with your jumper, and have all your smartwear, your smartwatch, your fitness tracker in your clothes, with the thread that you've bought and actually crafted with yourself.
For those of us who have problems making their phones work properly, right? Is it going to make things easier or more complicated?
The hope is to make it easier. But like my lights, that I can shout at the lights in my house and turn them off and on, rather than looking for the right app on your phone and looking at that little screen. You can shout at your jumper to send a message to Faye that you really hate pink. Or I was over anything, make a phone call just by shouting at your clothing.
You could program it to find your crochet hooks when you've lost them.
That'd be awesome. That's everybody's dream. A hat that has built-in speakers, so you can do phone calls from your hat. Although I always lose my hats, so that might not be the best option for me.
Well, no, you just install Where's My Hat?
Yeah, and my hat would ring from another room like my phone does.
Basically what you're saying is crochet is not going to become a lost art.
No, it's timeless. Everybody's always going to want to create interesting fibers with interesting colors and materials. It's only getting popular at the moment. More popular, what I mean.
Mm.
Yeah, and I believe somebody in this group once said that crochet cannot actually be mass produced. There's no way to make a machine that can crochet.
Not that human beings know of.
No. We have to see.
Well, you know, I can watch TV and crochet.
I've crocheted at a cinema.
I crocheted at midnight while walking.
While you were walking?
Yeah, there's a local hospice has a midnight walk, and ladies wearing pink shirts walk at midnight from sort of the local sports centre. We do 16.5 miles, and 1 year with a group of friends, we crocheted granny squares while we were walking with light up crochet hooks. But we're all have special needs when it comes to colour recognition. So we were supposed to all use the same colour pink, and we'd make the granny square blanket and auction it for money for St. Rocco's Hospice. As it turned out, every time we'd been to buy yarn, we'd all bought different pinks. I don't think anybody had bought a ball of yarn that was the same colour pink twice. So we had all these pink granny squares that just didn't match. So the symbol for the hospice is a rook. So we did it in a rook and then made black ones and joined them all together. The lady who won the auction had a set amount that she wanted to pay. She won it for less, so she donated the rest as well.
Oh, that's lovely.
Nice.
Well, I think that's about it for this episode, and we've certainly shown that crochet really has stood the test of time. So thank you very much for taking the time out to watch us today. Thank you for joining us, Sarita, as our special co-host. I hope we get to see you again. Thank you, Helen and Amanda, for joining me again this evening, and I really look forward to our next episode, which will come out in September. Thank you very much for watching, and good night. Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you for sharing your time with us.
Bye.
This video has been made possible thanks to Unravel and Unwind Patreon supporters. You too can become a patron for as little as £3.60 a month. To subscribe, visit www.patreon.com/Unravel and Unwind.